Barbados, that was kind of the end of the Caribbean. And we started to head south towards the equator, which was really cool because I had never crossed the equator.
I haven't either. I've heard stories.
I have done it now. Yeah, I've done it now. But before that, we stopped at a little island off the coast of French Guiana, which is a French colony on the northern coast of South America. It's near Suriname and Guyana. And there's an island off the coast, a couple little islands that are called Devil's Island. And Devil's Island was a prison. It was a penal colony up until like the 1950s. And some very famous French prisoners were sent there. There was a man named Dreyfus who was sent there in the late 1800s, and it was quite a scandalous affair in France, the scandal of Mr. Dreyfus. And we got a chance to go over to the prison, see the prison, see where the prisoners were. Now it's a national park. So it's kind of got little monkeys and a lot of birds that live there. Nobody actually lives there anymore, although there is a little tiny hotel with like 4 rooms where you could stay overnight, which that wouldn't quite be my cup of tea. It might be kind of creepy.
The creepy hotel.
Yeah.
What do you think?
The hotel and the prison. Hotel? Yeah, let's stay there with no other human beings. But it was a really, really neat experience. Then we crossed the equator. And so when you cross the equator for the first time by ship, apparently King Neptune gets kind of ticked off at you.
I've heard this story.
King Neptune ascended from the depths. And in the old days, they used to smear people with shaving cream and throw them in the water. They don't do that anymore. But we had to kiss a dead fish.
Oh, really?
So, yeah. Now, it was just kind of a peck on the cheek. It wasn't an intimate experience.
Wasn't a real intimate kiss?
No, it wasn't a real intimate kiss. But fish didn't kiss back. But anyway, I kissed a dead fish, and now I've officially crossed the equator. So now I'm back in King Neptune's good grace.
Perfect. I love that.
Yeah.
That's great.
And then we hit Brazil. And so over the next 9 days, I think, we went to 6 different cities in Brazil.
Wow. And just kind of hopscotching down the coast?
Just hopscotching down the coast. The first one was a very large city called Belém, Belem. And it's basically the northernmost large city in Brazil. And it sits at the mouth of the Amazon River.
Oh, wow.
And so the excursion that we took was to go by jet boat up the Amazon through some of the tributaries where people live. They live, and we'll put some pictures up here, but they live in kind of floating houses along the, they live in floating houses along the waterfront.
Sure. This is the Amazon River.
This is the Amazon Delta. Yep. This is the Amazon Delta. So, think of these bucket list things we're checking off here. Across the equator.
You're not kidding. This is really fun.
Yeah. And then I got to hold a tarantula.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah. Got to hold a tarantula.
This was a tarantula that's walking on your arm kind of deal?
Well, it was in my hand. It was in my hand. And apparently I had put a little bit too much mosquito spray on, so he didn't like me very much, so he went away. And according to our tour guide, as he put the tarantula in my hand, he said, well, tarantulas will only bite you if you scare them from the back. And then he goes like this on the back of the tarantula. Apparently I screamed. So
I would have screamed too.
Yeah. But tarantulas are actually very soft.
Really?
Their feet are very soft, and you kind of feel the softness, and then I guess there's a sting, and that's the end. But it didn't sting me, fortunately.
Wow.
So we also got to walk through the rainforest with kind of an expert naturalist. And it was really interesting to hear about how the rainforest works. And we hear about all the different herbs and things that can be, used from the rainforest for medicinal purposes, and like Brazil nuts. And so we got a chance to just discover the forest with this naturalist. And one of the most interesting things he said was that the trees in rainforests are old trees, but they basically sweat.
Really?
And so they put off, I forgot, like 200 pounds of water each day that they sort of release
every
day. And so when you walk from kind of the side of the river where the temperature was in the 80s, but it was comfortable, 100 yards into the rainforest, and it is like a sauna. You just start dripping, 100% humidity, and just amazing. Just to see, what we would call like house plants up here, living in their natural environments. That was a real cool highlight of the trip. I'd say that was one of my favorite
That's awesome.
excursions.
That's awesome. And how did, just from a, how did you feel safety wise? Was it, you felt very, very comfortable? Like, was
Yeah,
it,
I did.
I think of Brazil and I think, is it kind of hot down there? You know, I don't know.
Brazil has a problem with crime.
Yeah.
In certain places. I think it's a place where maybe I wouldn't venture out too far independently.
Yeah.
Everything we did was completely fine. Did not at all feel unsafe.
Good.
There's a pretty visible police presence
Okay.
throughout Brazil in pretty much everywhere we went. And certainly I think there are some areas where you could just tell this was not a place
Not supposed to be
to
here.
go. But I did not at all feel unsafe. People were very friendly.
Really fun.
Really happy to see Americans. I mean, they don't get a ton of tourism there. So when this ship comes, it's a big, injection into the arm of the economy because people go touring and the tour guides get work and the bus drivers get work and the shops can sell things and the restaurants. So I did not feel unsafe.
That's
Or
awesome.
did not feel unsafe.
That's awesome. That sounds just amazing. Those jet boat rides, I've been on one in Belize when I was on my honeymoon, and it was amazing.
It was really cool.
Really cool.
Yeah, they go pretty fast.
Yeah, I was surprised.
Yeah. And it was actually kind of neat because the folks who actually ran the jet boats, it was an all-female operation.
Oh, how
It was
fun.
an all-female business, and that's why they picked it for the excursion.
How fun.
And let me tell you, they had no trouble getting that thing going up into gear, and the way they dock those boats, I can't do that.
Yeah, it's amazing to see a pro at work.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I'm very impressed by the same thing. Like docking boats, that's something
If you can do that, I'm impressed. Yeah.
hats off,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Yeah.
Love it.
So we headed south. We went to a city called Recife, which is one of the first cities in Brazil. And actually, it was originally settled by the Dutch during kind of the colonial.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, yeah. And so the Dutch didn't last very long before the Portuguese came along and kicked them out. But had a beautiful downtown. We walked through like the historic governor's palace, a beautiful chapel that was there, the town square. And then we went to a little town near Recife called Olinda.
Okay.
And Olinda is a series of 7 hills. So it's kind of like Rome, only set in Brazil without the Roman ruins.
Sure.
And so 7 hills. And we went up to the top of one of the hills and had a chance to have a icy cold coconut because it was hot. That tasted really, really good, that icy cold coconut.
So just right out of the coconut.
Chop the top off, put a straw in, and you get to drink the coconut milk.
How fun.
Yeah, and just got a chance to stroll around. It's kind of an open air market. There were bands playing their kind of samba music.
Awesome.
And, there's a beautiful cathedral there. There's kind of a town square with a nice overlook of the bay and the beaches and stuff like that. So just a nice, pleasant exploration of kind of a city tour. So very different than hopping on a jet boat and zipping up the river. This was a little more sedate.
Yeah, that sounds really nice. Really, I've never had a coconut fresh like that, and I've always thought it can't taste good, but it sounds like it tasted great.
It tastes really good, and especially when it's cold and it's hot outside.
Love that
because it's got a little bit of structure to it, so it's better than water. It's much more refreshing than just drinking water.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
So then we went to Salvador.
Okay,
and Salvador, it's actually called Salvador de Bahia, and it's on a bay. And it is, according to our tour guide, the second largest bay in the world after Hudson's Bay. I will take him at his word.
I was just going to say.
I don't know, but I'll take him at his word.
Yeah.
Very busy, very big city, very urban.
Okay.
Parts of it were extremely modern, big skyscrapers. And we took a tour through the old town, which is up on kind of a hill overlooking the port and overlooking the bay.
Sure.
And so again, got to go see the town square, beautiful cathedral there. Nice. A lot of older buildings that are in the process of being renovated. So like a municipal theater that they were working on. There was an old city hall type building that they're turning into a luxury hotel.
Okay.
We went to a very small old convent. I think it was a Franciscan convent, and it had a gold chapel.
Really?
And when
like
you see,
real, like gold.
Like more gold than you can imagine.
Wow.
Just you'd walk in and from the outside, it looked like just kind of an unassuming South American church. Yeah. You walked in and it was just like, holy cow.
Wow.
I mean, the decoration in this building was just absolutely stunning. Just incredible. And, the guide kind of explained not only the construction of it, but then, they have kind of the typical scenes of, that you see in other Christian churches around the world. But apparently the architect of this church, or the interior decorator, had a little different taste of, or a little different interpretation of Christianity than normal. Okay. So sometimes you look at a picture and you're like, wait, this isn't exactly how it happened in the Bible. So it was kind of an interesting little twist on things.
That's fun.
And then we had a chance to walk through kind of the market streets and the small town, the ancient part of the town from the 15 and 1600s. So quite ancient. And then we went to the beach and had a chance to see a very famous lighthouse that guards the entrance to the bay.
Okay.
El Salvador. So again, now another kind of a city tour. So you've had the adventure tour, kind of the city walking tour, and you can get a flavor for the different types of things you can do on a cruise with the excursion.
So fun. The variety of things is just, I can't imagine, just endless, right?
Yeah. That's great. So we had a chance. We also stopped in another town and went to a beach, a very famous beach in Brazil called Gunga Beach. And so to get there, you took a bus from the ship, about an hour to a dock, and then we got on a wooden schooner that took us across the bay to this beach. And the beach was just beautiful. I mean, the sand was just you couldn't have imagined a more perfect beach.
Yeah.
It was probably 90 degrees, but there was just enough of a breeze that you didn't feel hot at all. The water was just bath water warm, very clear. The beach was it divided the bay from the ocean. Okay. And so there was the bay side that was very calm, and you could just kind of float there. And the ocean side had a little bit of waves to it, but it was also protected by kind of a reef. So just a beautiful, just sit there, lie on the beach. And again, they had chairs reserved for us and everything. And it was a perfectly relaxing afternoon.
That sounds
at the
beautiful.
Beach. It was beautiful.
Sounds great.
We stopped in a town called Búzios, which we're now getting towards Rio.
Okay, yeah.
And Búzios is sort of a beach suburb of Rio.
Okay.
And it was a tiny fishing village until the 1960s, when the very famous French actress Brigitte Bardot had a Brazilian boyfriend. And I think she had a lot of boyfriends, but at this particular time, she had a Brazilian boyfriend. Yeah. And so he took her to Búzios, and all the paparazzi followed her to Búzios. And it was such a beautiful place that Búzios became world famous. Apparently, she never came back. Too many paparazzi. But they have a sculpture of Brigitte in the town square.
That's funny.
And the tour guide kind of described the town as sort of the Saint-Tropez of Brazil.
Wow.
And I wouldn't quite say that, but it was a very pretty, beautiful town, nestled along the shore, small restaurants, small shops, very upscale feel to it. Nice. We had a chance to go on a little cruise around the bay, and the ship would just drop anchor and you hopped in the ocean and swam.
No way.
For a little while. Yeah.
How great.
Yeah, it was clear. It was a little chilly, so you wouldn't want to spend too much time in the ocean. But just to get a beautiful, nice, relaxing day. Because then the next day was the end of the cruise in Rio.
Okay.
And so the ship actually spent the night in Rio. So we had a chance to do some sightseeing the first day before we disembarked the next day. And so we went to the Sugarloaf Mountain.
And is that the world famous one that you see, like that overlooks? It's just way up there.
It's very big.
Seems like it's in the clouds.
Big chunk of bare rock.
Yeah.
Kind of in the middle of the city of Rio de Janeiro.
Beautiful.
Yeah. And it was made famous in that James Bond movie, Moonraker, where Jaws tries to eat through the cable car wires. Well, fortunately, he wasn't there. Because if he had done that, those cable cars, there's a long way down.
So they're still run the cable cars up there?
Still run the cable cars. Okay. Yep, there are 2 legs to get up there. It takes about 90 minutes to get to the top. But once you get there, oh my God, the view is just breathtaking. And the ride up is incredible. But, on one side you have the city of Rio. In the distance, you have that big statue of Christ the Redeemer.
Yeah.
On the other side, you have Copacabana Beach. I mean, just beautiful. And it's a really beautiful part of the city as well. So we did that. Went back to the ship, had to kind of pack up and get kicked off.
Yeah.
And so then the next day, our flight home didn't leave until 9:00 at night.
Oh, gosh.
And so we actually arranged a private shore excursion.
Oh, fun.
And that's something we do quite a bit for our clients, arrange kind of a customized shore excursion.
Yeah.
So Ken, believe it or not, I went for a bike tour.
All right.
I got on a bike.
I love biking.
It was interesting. I biked all the way down Copacabana Beach and made a left turn and biked all the way down Ipanema Beach.
No way.
And then went around a big lagoon. And it was really nice.
How did you enjoy it?
It was about 95 degrees.
Oh, my gosh.
I was a little wet afterwards, but it was actually a really nice way to do it.
Yeah.
And, it was a Saturday morning, so it was a little crowded at the beach, as you can imagine. So I think if you'd done this on a Tuesday or a Wednesday, it maybe would have been a little more time to look and a little less time to worry about, hitting somebody. Right. But it was a really neat experience. We had a great tour guide. He did a really nice job, and we got to kind of not just ride along the beach, but he'd kind of take you up into the neighborhood and show you a little town, a shop or a square or something that was quite interesting.
So I didn't even think about that. Of course you had a tour guide. So he's on the bike.
Yeah, on the bike with us.
Out with you and just telling you, hey, here's what's going on here and there.
And just making sure everything's okay. And, people in Brazil don't speak English as a matter of course. Sure. So if, you wanted to stop and buy something, he'd help you. If you needed to run into the pharmacy and buy a Band-Aid because you cut your toe on the... No, it didn't happen to me. But
wait a minute.
Thinking about
all
the things that could go wrong. Right. Like, what if I hit my head? And then afterwards, we went to an old warehouse district that's now been taken over by the people who put on the carnival in Brazil. Their version of Mardi Gras.
Wow.
And all I can say is imagine Mardi Gras times 10.
What?
Yes. So they've actually built a whole series of stadiums, several blocks long, where they have the giant carnival parade, where they have floats, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people dressed up in costumes dancing the samba.
Wow.
And it goes on for 3 nights from like 7 p.m. till 2 in the morning.
Oh my gosh.
This is a big deal. This is like the Super Bowl of samba down there. And so every year they build new floats and new costumes and they learn new dance routines. So we got to see the floats under construction. That's top secret. So we were not allowed to take pictures. We actually had to put our phones in a little locked bag while we were walking through the floats.
How fun is that?
So if I see it on TV, I'll be like, oh, I recognize that. But then we got to go into the costume area.
Yeah.
And they made us try on some costumes.
Oh, gosh. I hope
they
we
made
have
us
a picture
actually
of
try
this.
the samba, which let me tell you, that's a hard dance. I mean, I don't dance well to begin with, but they move fast.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting and to learn about the history and the culture and how samba came to be and the cultural symbolism from it, which is very rich. And there's a whole story besides just the beauty of the spectacle. And then our tour guide was a big soccer fan.
Oh, sure.
So I think we saw 5 soccer stadiums.
He assumed that you were a fan as well.
I think one just assumes everyone is. And I made a really silly mistake.
Uh-oh.
I asked him which team in Rio Pele had played for.
Uh-oh.
Apparently Pele played for Sao Paulo.
Oh.
So, that would be like, I don't know, asking a
Packers
fan who Brett Favre played for.
Right.
Something like that. So anyways, apparently Pele isn't as big in Rio as he is everywhere else in Brazil.
Funny.
But soccer is like the national religion there. And these soccer stadiums are gigantic. So we got just a very diverse view of the city before we came back to reality with a long flight home. It was an amazing trip. And as I kind of as the plane took off, I'm like, wow, that was 17 days. Imagine if that was like your life for 6 months. Just you'd come home and you'd have 2 years worth of stories to tell.
Right.
I mean, it'd be just amazing.
Legit.
And so I really understood, I think, the world cruise differently.
Yeah.
Maybe than just seeing it on a flat piece of paper and all that stuff, all that diversity of experiences and things to do and things to sample and things to learn.
Yeah.
It just didn't end. And so it was a very cool trip. And like I said, that was only 17 days.
That's fun. We're getting close to time here.
All right.
Should we call it a wrapper?
I suppose.
Okay. Why don't you take us out, Ted? How do we get in touch with you and your team? What's the best way to reach out and say hi and maybe book a world cruise with you guys?
Yeah, well, certainly if you're thinking about booking a world cruise, let's make sure we have a good conversation beforehand. And, right now we're probably talking about here in the spring of 2025, we're talking probably about 2027 world cruises. And that's good because you got a lot of time to think about it and prepare for it. They usually announce the itinerary for that next world cruise to the people on the ship first.
Oh, no way.
So they get first dibs.
How fun.
So whenever the cruise is done and they get home, that's when the rest of us can book into it.
Okay.
So it'll probably be June of this year that the 2027 one will be available.
What a fun way of doing that.
Yeah, visit our website, tedblanktravel.com, and you can schedule an appointment or fill out a form and contact us, and we'd be happy to chat with you about a world cruise or maybe a segment or any type of a cruise vacation.
I love it. Well, thanks for joining me as always on the Explore and More show. We will see you next time. Thanks for tuning in.